think he was the first person to do that.
I was the first one to climb the face and then jump off with a parachute.
Wow.
I mean, I was a professional climber where I was earning money doing it. And you got to move on from this sport. You're going to die.
Thank you guys for tuning in.
Howdy, y'all. Welcome to Seager Storytime. We're your hosts, Mattson, Case, and Elliott, and we're the co-founders of Seager Company.
Anyways, thank you so much for coming in. Basically, this podcast is just to get to know you. So to start it off, can you explain who you are and what you do?
Yeah, my name is Randy Leavitt, and I'm historically just a rock climber, but I started getting involved in all kinds of other things as a result of maybe an adventurous spirit, like to do things, like to kind of be on the cutting edge of finding things, finding climbing areas, finding surf areas, figuring out how to do things differently. So it's just been, I'm 64 years old, and I still feel like I'm in my 30s.
You look like you're in your 30s, honestly.
Oh, well,
yeah.
I'm starting to feel my age more these days, but thanks.
Yeah, of course. So I guess, because I know, and again, Johnny, who introduced us to you, gave us a brief background. So there's a lot of layers to what you do. You do a bunch of different sports, like you were saying. But on the climbing side of things, because I know that was your first, I guess, hobby or sport, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What got you into that immediately? Because when was that exactly, I guess? Like what year?
I was 14 years old, so that would be 1974. My parents took me on a family vacation where we went to Colorado to this Adventure Unlimited ranches. They had rock climbing, so we all got to experience rock climbing.
Like the classic rope climb up kind of rock climbing?
Well, yeah, they'd put a top rope on a cliff, and then you would climb up with a rope protecting you from above, and then they teach you how to rappel.
That's cool.
And just the old school stuff, basics. Yeah. And I just enjoyed it. My parents were super supportive of things, extracurricular activities, and sort of letting me be me. And I took to it. And pretty much the next year, I started climbing more and more and more. And within a few years, I was climbing some of the harder routes on El Cap.
Jeez.
So
you went quick.
Yeah, I went quick in that regard. But there's so many different aspects of climbing. It would be like the difference between, toe-in surfing at Nazare versus like a guy who likes to longboard it.
Yeah.
And they're both distinct skills. One guy might not be good at the other. And so there's all these different venues or different types of climbing. And I pretty much got into all of them. Mountaineering, ice climbing, big wall climbing, free climbing with a rope, not the Alex Honnold stuff.
So
crazy stuff.
What's the difference then? Free climbing with a rope. It means you're not like you're just connected at that one point, but you're not connected to like a top line or something.
Free climbing with a rope means that if you fall, a rope's going to catch you.
Okay.
But you're only allowed by the rules of the game to climb with your hands and feet.
So you can't use a rope.
Can't use your tongue.
You can't grab the gear. You can't grab the gear to make progress.
Got it. So your hand strength.
It would just be bad style.
And when you were climbing El Cap in the beginning, was it still legal to climb?
Oh, is it still
legal today?
Yeah, it's still legal.
Okay.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's wild.
There's a lot of things that aren't legal in this country, but climbing El Cap still is.
That's crazy because they shot so many documentaries on it.
Legal, right? You think they would just go to jail?
Yeah.
Wait, are we saying legal or illegal?
No, you actually have to have a commercial filming license permit to do like the film Free Solo. That they did. So,
or else they'd get a massive fine.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy.
So it is illegal to climb El Cap.
It is legal.
Legal.
Oh, it is legal.
Yeah.
Yeah, legal.
It's always been legal.
It's always been legal.
Wow. Okay.
And fortunately, it's part of the history of Yosemite, climbing El Cap.
Yeah.
Whereas base jumping, when you want to jump off the top with a parachute, now that's illegal.
Okay.
Have you done that? Yeah.
I've done that.
I think he was the first person to do that.
I was the first one to climb the face and then jump off with a parachute.
Wow.
That's insane.
What gave you the idea to be like, I'm going to make this gnarlier?
Well,
and just
I want
to
make it more efficient. So I'm into like I wouldn't be into bungee jumping because bungee jumping you would just
come back up.
Yeah, no, you don't go anywhere, right? You would jump and then you would swing down and then you'd be hanging with a bungee cord. And now what do?
Yeah.
It doesn't get you from A to B. It doesn't do anything. I like sports that you can get better at over time, that you can develop a skill and that have like a purpose. So we used to throw our haul bags off the top of El Cap with a hammock attached to slow them down like parachutes.
Wow.
After we would climb El Cap, and you don't do this anymore.
I was going to
because
say,
it's
someone's like,
it's too popular there. You
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
be doing stuff like this. But this is back in the old days, in the 70s. We would climb El Cap, pack everything in a haul bag, put a hammock on it, go to the edge and toss it off. And I looked and I saw the bags go and I thought, wow, that's like a parachute.
Yeah.
And then I heard stories later on about guys jumping with these red and yellow jumpsuits and these guys like tracking, in free fall away from the wall and opening parachutes. And so I became obsessed with learning how to do that. I went to Lake Elsinore in California and started jumping right away. I wanted to learn how to do it so I could jump off El Cap.
what's the like first test one? Like, how do you
Yeah,
just go for it on the
Sounds
first
like
one?
the scariest.
Like you did rock climbing and it was like a camp, right? But for base jumping, do you just jump and go for it?
Well, these days you could hire someone to do a tandem jump where you actually get strapped onto some person.
Yeah. That always
And
looks
that's
a little
sketchy.
awkward, though.
Yeah.
It looks awkward too. They're just like roping you for the whole descent.
And you could experience it without actually having to operate the parachute or anything like that. But base jumping it's not very difficult. The problem is that there's 5 things you have to do. If you don't do one of them right away, you could die. So it's like a checklist of 5 things, but it's not very hard to do.
So
Now wingsuit is different. You've seen guys in these squirrel suits like
Yeah.
flying around cliffs.
mhm.
That was after my time. I quit base jumping before that came out. Otherwise, I probably would have never quit base jumping.
Jeez.
Seriously.
That's
So
insane.
you climbed to the top with the parachute on your back. Is that adding a lot of weight or?
I had a friend meet me on top with my parachute. So we climbed up. His name was John Yablonsky. He was a legendary Yosemite guy. And he met us on top. I climbed with Mike Leklinski, who was a climber but not a base jumper. Mike and John Yablonsky, or Yabo as he was known, hiked down the east ledges, and I jumped off the top.
Okay, gotcha.
So
And-
he had to hike up and hike back down.
They had to hike, or I climbed up the face.
Yep.
And John Yablonsky hiked from the top. I mean, there's this road way inland from way back from the rim that you can hike in.
Yeah.
And so he had to hike down after that.
That's a good friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so nerve wracking too.
I paid him with a saxophone.
Did you?
Yeah.
Alto?
Yeah.
Alto
It
sax?
was alto sax.
Hell yeah, that's a good move.
That's amazing.
Versatile.
That's awesome.
I was not, I loved music, but I was not good at it.
You just had a saxophone lying around.
No, I owned a saxophone.
Oh yeah, you were
Yeah.
big on that.
Uh-huh.
Fuck yeah.
And he really wanted the saxophone? or what?
I played the saxophone too for a little bit. That's why I knew that.
You should be the first guy to base jump playing a saxophone.
Oh my god.
People would skateboard off and pogo stick off.
Oh yeah.
Man.
Pogos.
Pogo stick's wild.
Is there photo or video of this happening? You base jumping off?
I have a video. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not a video. I have a photo.
I would love to see that.
Who took the photo and from where?
No, I have a photo of me jumping off a different cliff,
Uh,
but I have photos of other guys I've taken pictures of there.
Yeah.
Got it.
that's insane.
That's
And
insane.
does I forgot the name of the movie, but I saw one. I think it was in the 70s in Yosemite, where there was people would just party at the campsites, smoke, and then climb. Was that kind of the energy before you climb? Was it all kind
yeah,
of partying?
it was a full countercultural
Yeah.
sort of I wouldn't say a drug scene because these guys were pretty. I wasn't really in that scene, but I was with those guys. So it was
Yeah.
like part of the deal, like smoking weed. And,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of stories. They the Stone Masters.
Yeah, I heard of that.
So
was that there where or maybe it was a different area where they found like a plane full of weed or something?
yeah.
Was
A
that
lot-
in Yosemite?
Yeah, the plane full of weed was in the high country of Yosemite,
Got it.
and it was called the Crash Bud. That's what we called it.
Yeah.
And so there was a year where this plane had all this weed in it. It crashed in a lake, and it was frozen in the lake. And all these climbers figured out that there was this plane up there, and no one could get to it. So they went and skied into it with chainsaws and cut the ice open.
Damn.
Grabbed bales of marijuana,
Yeah.
and some of those guys bought houses with that money.
No
They did
way.
pretty well, yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
It's like finding treasure.
That's so epic.
Were you around that group when they were doing that?
I was around that group, but not there at the time. I mean, those were
Allegedly.
people that I knew.
Yeah.
They were a couple of years older than me, but at that age, I was say 16, and they were 18, 19, 20. So
Yeah.
a 20-year-old seems way older than a 16-year-old.
Right.
it does.
Right. Yeah.
And were
Now-
you just did you just drive up there or at that point? Like, because you're so young, how did you get there? Like, were your parents like, good luck, go out there and go smoke some weed, jump off a cliff? You know, like how do you get there at that age?
Well, you can drive at, what is it, 16? You can get a learner permit?
Yeah.
Right? Or no, you can get a license at 16.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
as soon as I was 16, my parents let me drive.
And you just went up there and went for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's epic.
One time I drove a motorcycle up there.
Hell yeah.
I had strapped a haul bag. I was going to do the Leaning Tower in the winter, and it's just this giant bag that's really heavy with all your gear on it. I strapped it on this, was it like a Kawasaki 900 with the cafe racer handlebars, and drove up there on that. And the trip didn't work out. I didn't. Yeah. It was too cold. But I was willing to do anything.
Yeah.
When you're young and you just want to do it.
For sure.
I would set my mind on something and get it done.
That's a good question though from Elliott, is just in order to get into that scene, you have to have the right friends that are also willing to go up there, or at least know that that's even a possibility. So I'm curious, like, what your first inclination was that was even a thing to do up there.
That what was the thing?
Climbing El Cap, or just going and being part of that like dirtbag culture?
I wanted to climb El Cap, and the dirtbag culture was part of the climbing scene. So therefore, that was part of the experience I had. But
was climbing El Cap, sorry to cut you off, but it was climbing El Cap like part of I'm trying to like formalize the question here, but what came first? Like El Cap, like you saw a photo of it and you're like, I'm going to climb that? Or was it I'm climbing rocks and then I hear that El Cap is something that you can climb?
Before I was a climber, my parents took me to Yosemite. And I remember there was this day where the clouds were covering El Cap and covering the top of it and covering the bottom of it. And then they parted momentarily and I saw this strip of clear sky. But you can't see the sky, right? All you see is this monolithic mountain. And then I could see these little dots on there. And those were climbers. And as a kid, I was just like, oh my God, that is something I want to do. But I didn't really start climbing to do that. That was like a memory I had. And then maybe a year or two later is when I did my first climbing. And so, of course, as soon as I did that, I thought, oh, this is what I want to do. And I climbed. So I started climbing in 74. I climbed a hard climb on Half Dome, which is a big wall, in 77. And I did, at the time, I think it was the hardest route on El Cap, or second hardest, in 78. So pretty quickly, I got my feet wet in that environment and just took to it. I was a real good big wall climber naturally, but other aspects of the sport, I really had to work on a lot harder.
I guess just to get back to the base jump. So you were climbing it a bunch and getting to know like how to climb it and doing harder routes. At what point did you actually say, I'm going to base jump off? And how did that?
It was 1978 that I threw the haul bags off. And I think it was 1980 that I base jumped off. So it took me at least a year of jumping to get good at enough. So I felt confident. But back in those days, I was this young kid and I'd show up at the drop zone in Elsinore. And I would say to these guys with thousands of jumps, I'm just here because I want to learn how to base jump so I can jump off El Cap. And these guys would look at me and go, you're crazy. You're like, that's Black Death. We don't want to have anything to do with you. Yeah. People don't do that unless they have thousands and thousands of jumps. But it's really not that hard. You just can't screw up the 5 things.
And you gotta have balls of steel, I feel like.
Well, when you jump off El Cap, the runoff is very steep. It's like a ramp that's about, angled about 15 degrees, which at the edge of a cliff seems pretty steep.
Yeah.
15, maybe a little bit more degrees downsloped, and it's a little bit knobby, textured, and you're standing there and you only have to run about 20 feet and you're off the top. And it's just this crazy feeling. And I think nowadays people have base jumped so much that they probably think, oh, it's no big deal. I do this all the time. But back in those days, people weren't doing it. So you're standing at the edge and you're thinking, all I have to do is start running. There's no when you're skydiving, you're in an airplane and they're jump run, and they tell you when to jump off so that you're basically with the upper winds, you're above the target when you open your parachute.
Yeah.
But when you're in El Cap, you're just standing there and there's no one yelling at you, jump run, or there's no airplane. It's quiet.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay,
That sounds
when
so
are you going to
intense.
start running?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What goes through your head?
And so
Underneath
it's kind of crazy feeling where your heart starts beating. And, I was not highly experienced, but I had 80 skydives at the time, and you run off. So the first thing is you want to run off standing up, because when you arch your back skydiving, you fall like a badminton birdie. You'll fall stomach to earth. But because there's no relative wind hitting you, you want to run off standing up, and you arch. And then, so that's the first thing, arch, stand up. And then as you come down stomach to earth, you'll get some airspeed, and you can feel the wind. It goes from silent to like breezy, and then all of a sudden real windy, and then violently windy. And when you get to that really super windy part, you can push on the air. You can get in a tracking position and track your body away from the wall. And you look at El Cap Tower, which is halfway up. It's 1,500 feet off the ground, and you want to open even with that. So you just start tracking and looking at that, and it is hovering down there for a long time. The free fall is pretty long. I think it's like 10 seconds.
Wow.
My
palms are sweating, by
I
the way.
know.
Yeah. And then you see that come, and as soon as you see it come, it just whips by, because at that point you're almost at terminal velocity, or I think you are at terminal velocity, and open up, and there's this big meadow to land in.
Wow. That's what I was going to ask, like, how do you know where to land? But it sounds like right below there's that meadow. So yeah. Wow.
It's the perfect setup. And it was legal for a while. There was some legal jumps, but the Park Service, for whatever reasons they have, they don't make it legal.
I'm assuming
anymore.
some people died doing that, right? Would be my
Mm-hmm.
guess. And they're probably like, all right, can't keep picking up bodies.
Yeah, well, it's in Europe. There's a lot of legal jumps, so probably the best thing for me to have done would have been to travel to Europe and
Do more of that.
do more of that.
Yeah.
But I quit jumping here, because if El Cap was still legal, I would have been kept doing it, because it's awesome. It's the best base jump platform. It's the best venue for base jumping in the world,
because it's just a sheer cliff, right?
Wow.
It's just so perfect. Yeah, it's good weather.
So you land that first jump, your adrenaline's probably through the fucking roof, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're feeling good, and then you're thinking, how can I do more of this shit? Like, do you just start accelerating and getting into different things at that point? That sounds like you're like,
you start looking at everything as jumpable.
yeah.
So I jumped off some buildings in downtown Los Angeles. I jumped
Jeez.
off some bridges and some dam walls. And
Did you have any close calls doing that?
yeah, I did. I had some. And then eventually I jumped off a bridge in San Diego, Pine Valley Bridge. And after that, and another jump off an antenna in Stockton, I just realized that I was looking at, say, like a grain silo is jumpable, a 300-foot grain silo.
Jeez.
And I'm like, what are you thinking, Randy?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
this is just take a sack of potatoes and throw them off.
yeah.
I mean,
Straight
you
up.
got to move on from this sport. You're going to
Yeah.
die.
Okay.
And so, but like I said, if El Cap were still legal, that would be just the perfect venue. But people are looking for things that are legal or what have you. And it's, so the sport does not have a lot of, I don't know. It's not set up for your average guy to do it.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we just had a buddy pass away from base jumping and squirrel shooting. Rest in peace, Kimball.
Yeah.
Love you, buddy. But yeah, it's a scary sport.
The squirrel shooting especially,
Yeah.
because it allows you this incredible glide ratio, and guys will free fall through these canyon slots, and where they're basically barely staying above the ground, and then they'll fly over another cliff, and
That's insane.
It's
I don't
the
get
sport is the sport of squirrel shooting. Proximity base jumping is what they call it, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Is it just a hobby at this point, or are there like teams? Like, is it a career where you could just be base jumping or squirrel shooting and stuff, or is it just like a side thing?
I think if you got signed up to Red Bull, you
That'd
could
be
make
the
a living at it.
Okay.
But you're not going to get a retirement income from it.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
Speaking of your career, are you a full-time athlete, or what do you do if you're not, what do you do on the side?
I'm a real estate investor,
Okay.
broker,
Got
so
it.
I bought and managed apartment buildings in San Diego.
Okay.
And that's how I earn my money.
Okay.
Started
I mean,
off
I was
with
a professional climber where I was earning money doing it, but you know, it's really not, except for the few guys who are the best in the world. You're not going to make a real living at it.
Yeah. Right.
So it started off.
It
sold
sounds
a bunch of
good,
weed, right? Found a bunch of weed up, cut it open, sold it, bought the first real estate property,
Yeah. There you go.
right?
Well, some of those guys did. Yeah.
It's genius.
Yeah.
So what after climbing and jumping? So I know you're in foiling, and I'm assuming in bouldering, right? I think Johnny was saying something about Joshua Tree, where you were the first to climb
pioneer.
there, right?
Pioneered it.
No, Joshua Tree is like an old time climbing area. I was doing new climbs there, but I'm
Got
not
it.
certainly not the first guy to climb there.
Okay.
But a big part of what you do is first ascents at some
Yeah.
places.
Yeah, I look for, you know, a place that no one has found yet, a climbing area or climbs that no one has done yet. And it's kind of like as exciting as, let's say that you were looking for a perfect wave and you found macaronis in the Mentawai Islands.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the
Yeah.
macaronis of rock climbing.
Yeah.
It seems dangerous though to be the first ascent.
Oh, I've got a lot of experience with it.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's sometimes we were climbing down in Baja on this really big cliff, like 600 to 1,000 feet tall, but it had a lot of loose rock because no one had been up on these climbs before. And so that was dangerous because I was climbing with only a really trusted partner or two that I knew if they were up there dealing with some giant rock, that if they pulled it off the wall, it would come down to hit me.
Yeah.
And I knew that whatever they're dealing with is kind of like I would be doing the same thing. So I just have to just sit there and just like, okay, I hope this goes well. Or if I'm the guy climbing, I have to trust that I'm going to do the right thing. But it's that kind of first ascent climbing can be dangerous, but there's also ways to mitigate that. One of the ways is you can go down from the top, you know, maybe get to climb another easier route or what have you, and rappel down the route that you're trying to do and inspect it and pull some loose rock off.
Gotcha.
So there's a lot of stuff you can control. It can almost be just clinically safe in some ways by your approach. So
And as someone that doesn't rock climb very often, if you go to the top and come down, are you
Very often.
Are you very often?
I was gonna
Ever?
say.
Very
Yeah.
often.
Ever. Are you
One
like
time.
hand bolting actual bolts in, and how does that work?
right. So normally we want to use a power drill, which would be like a battery powered SDS hammer drill you could walk into Home Depot and
Yeah.
buy. You've seen them there. You know, they're just these
Yeah.
little Makitas. And that would be the ideal thing. If it's a wilderness area in the U.S., those are illegal, so you have to do it by hand. So we don't like to do it by hand, so we're looking for non-wilderness areas that we can safely put bolts in, because you can drill a good hole, put this permanent anchor in, and then everyone from then on can use it. That's part of it, but a lot of the really exciting part of rock climbing is not putting a bolt in, but seeing a cliff and saying, well, I think the line is here, following cracks that where you can put
Yeah.
your own protection in and take it out after you're done. So the fixed anchors are part of it, but they're not the whole thing.
Gotcha.
Are you doing like bouldering very often, or is it like, do you focus mainly on like multi-pitch ascents?
Mostly multi-pitch.
Okay.
Yeah. Bouldering's a whole different sport,
Okay.
and mostly for young guys now,
Yeah.
because you got to fall. I mean, they're bouldering stuff where they're high enough they should have ropes.
Yeah.
And
It's
and they
intense.
and it's a very specialized body type. It's almost like someone who's really good at bouldering, maybe 5 or 6 moves, has different skill set than someone like myself who's used to longer climbs.
Okay. Yeah, I do a little bit of bouldering and like top roping and stuff like that, but
Mhm.
I've yet to learn to lead, so
Yeah,
I'm getting there. Yeah.
lead climbing is nice. I like it. It's enjoyable. You get to the point where you're so focused on what you're doing, you're not thinking about your taxes, your laundry, your garden at home, or whatever. You're just so focused on that moment.
Yeah.
And if you fall, hopefully, as climbs get more difficult, they get steeper. So we're actually falling is less of a problem because we're not hitting anything.
Yeah.
So if you're a beginner and you're lead climbing and you're up there and you can fall and hit all these objects on the way down,
Yeah.
it seems terrifying. Like, how could I lead something really, really hard? Well, it
Yeah.
actually gets easier because it gets safer.
Yeah. It's so fun though. I love it. So it's really interesting to hear those things.
Rock climbing's great. It
Yeah.
it keeps your whole body sort of in check. Balance, strength, isometric strength,
Oh, for sure.
flexibility.
All of the photos from like the dirtbag days and your days, everyone's just jacked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, how did you?
Smoking doobies, just shredded.
Yeah, it's
0%
like, gosh, all these guys are just like ideal bodies. You're just like, dang, what the heck? What are they eating?
Yeah, the
over
hand
there?
strength always gets me. You do like finger pull-ups and things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could never do that, honestly. I mean, maybe not never, but
Made of humble beginnings and smooth finishes. Made of altitude and attitude. Made of generations. Grit. Wonder and wander. But most of all, made of Wyoming.
By the way, I'm utterly impressed with Turtlebox. The durability is seriously unmatched. How many times did we use it on our Hawaii trip?
the entire time, like from when we went down to Pipeline all the way to when we went on the boat with Malahi, Wolf, and Finn.
Yeah, we were throwing it in the sand, throwing it on the grass, throwing it in the water. It does everything.
Yeah, I think the coolest part about it is it's fully waterproof. I mean, that's so sick that you can just literally be fishing and blast it with water and it's totally fine. It has quality sound.
And you don't even need boat speakers. You might as well just have a Turtlebox.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why spend thousands of dollars on boat speakers when you can just put this thing anywhere you're going?
For $3.99.
Yeah,
$3.99.
and if you have two of them, you can sync them together and it takes 2 seconds.
Surround sound.
Yeah.
Boom.
The sound quality is insane.
It's insane.
We
Go
love
out
it.
there and go get one.
Turtle box. Boom. There's a rock climbing wall at one of the gyms that I go to, and it has a mechanical top line, I guess. I don't know if that's the right term, but basically you don't need a belayer,
The auto belay.
Automatic belay.
automatic belay. And I was there with my fiance and we were climbing, and she gets to the top, and then I'm like, just kick off, the thing's got you. And she's like, I don't trust it. And I'm like, well, you have to. There's no other option. She starts climbing back down, and I'm like, she looks terrified, like she's like shaking.
Yeah.
And then she finally gets to a point where she's like, you'll catch me, right? And like she jumps, and obviously the auto belay works. And I'm like, you're such a, come on.
It's like a cat in a tree is
I
what
was
I'm
like,
thinking.
and then I climbed to the top, and I like whatever happened to my mind where I was like, you're being like whatever. It was
Happened to
the
you
exact same thing to me. I was like, I don't trust this thing. There's no way this thing works. I'm like looking down. It's like 30 feet. I'm like, I don't know. And I start climbing down backwards.
I mean,
and-
odds are it's failed at least one time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But it's weird how your brain, and probably not for you because you're
Jumping off cliffs.
super.
Would it make you feel better if I'm told you I'm inherently distrustful of those things too?
Okay. That
Yeah.
does make me feel better. Yeah. Absolutely.
And they have that,
They are kind of weird.
they
Yeah.
have that
it's weird.
slight second where like you don't catch. So it's always
Yeah.
a little scary too.
Yeah.
A little
And
bit
then it's
free
like, if you do catch it, you're just going to slam me back into the wall or whatever.
Or you're sort of down climbing and almost falling at the same time, but it never has enough speed to catch
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you're like, for sure, this doesn't work.
Exactly. Yeah.
I knew it.
But it's funny. Yeah. It's weird how your brain just like switches like, oh, I don't trust anything right now. I'm going to die. Gosh, it's weird. But it's fun. It is fun. Definitely want to get back into it, but it's one of those things where if you don't go, I feel like if you don't go every week or multiple times a week, you just can't get better.
There's a lot of training involved in climbing.
Yeah.
It's not like surfing. Surfing, you could maybe not last in the water 3 hours in a session, but once you're up on the board, you know what to do.
Yeah.
You know, your body remembers. You're climbing, your body remembers, but it can't execute.
Right.
It's like, okay, I used to do a 1 finger, 1 arm pull up. Now I
That's
can't even,
insane.
you know.
With your
That's
middle
insane.
finger?
Yeah, I could do 2 of them with my middle finger, 2
That's
1 arm pull ups in a
So
row.
insane.
That's unreal, honestly. I can't even comprehend that.
Yeah, I can't either.
It doesn't.
crazy.
I mean, it's great strength to have, but what's really the important strength is contact strength, where you can just hang on with your fingertips. So it's sort of like the muscles between your elbow and your fingertips.
So you could probably shake the shit out of someone's hand, right? So
Not as much as you would
break
think.
their knuckles. Like,
It's not as much like that's not like baseball player strength.
oh, that's gnarlier, really?
No, it's. I mean, it's
Like
different.
baseball players, a stronger hand grip. You think?
Oh yeah, have you
Really?
Oh gosh.
I would
They'll
honestly love to see
destroy
a
your
test.
hand.
Really?
Uh huh.
Like are we talking like a pitcher or something, or anyone?
I think anyone.
Just holding the bat.
Wow.
Yeah.
Grip strength.
I would have never guessed that.
I mean, a tennis player is probably pretty strong too then, huh?
Well,
Oh, come
yeah, I
on,
don't know.
dude.
It's,
I don't know. It's less like full grip, right?
Yeah, here it is.
3
I'm a
fingers.
tennis player.
Damn. Okay. Well, okay. Another random question. Now I'm thinking about it because you're very calm, and I'd imagine that would come with having done a lot of gnarly, death-defying endeavors in your life. How does that translate? Being that gnarly, you're in the moment, and then back to whether it's selling real estate or just family life. Like, how do you have like two, not personalities, but do you like, can you shut it off and then turn it back on, that adrenaline hit sort of thing, if that makes sense? I don't know how to word that.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I don't feel like I'm one guy there and another guy when I'm at home or doing other things, but you sort of manage risk is the way I look at it.
Okay.
And so in business, you manage risk, like, right. We can't get too over leveraged. We have to, plan for a slowdown.
Yeah.
Or we have to be aggressive when the time is right, know when it's worth trying to be aggressive. So it's the same, but you're doing it with yourself. And so when you do it with yourself, the stakes are higher.
Yeah.
As you're younger, you're more bold. As you get older, you get more risk averse.
That makes
And
sense.
so I don't go out doing stuff, even though I still do things that people think are dangerous. To me, I'm not feeling like I'm putting myself in a situation where I'm going to really get hurt.
Gnarly.
Something like hydrofoil surfing.
Yeah.
You could fall off and that thing will slice a major artery, and you would die in the water.
Yeah.
I mean, that's worst case scenario.
I
But
was going to say, how often
but-
did that happen?
it does happen.
Really?
But not very often. Thank
I've
God.
gotten cut by one of those things.
Really?
Yeah.
I always thought about someone duck diving
They duck dive really well.
and then just like, but someone's hydrofoiling and you're like right here duck diving.
Oh,
You know what I mean? I always think that in my head.
That would not be
And
good.
someone
Just
just
like Final Destination.
Yeah, I know.
Got it.
I've watched too many of those movies, I think. Or that Spike show. Remember one time it was like 1,000 Ways to Die?
Yeah.
That's number 862.
Yeah.
Hydrofoil to the neck.
Yeah. I did what do you call it? Like not a mechanical, motorized hydrofoil.
an e-foil.
An
Like Mark
e-foil.
Zuckerberg, you're saying? You
Yeah.
wanted to be him.
No, I don't.
Sunscreen all over the face.
Yeah, shoes.
And I never want to do it again. I just think it was terrible. Like
Uh-huh.
just like the mechanics of it, trying to get up on the board, and then it flipped upside down and hit me in the shin, and I was just like, I hate this whole thing. I hate this whole.
You hated it because it was not fun or because it was sketchy?
Sketchy.
Because
It
everyone
probably would
does
have been
it
fun.
smile so hard.
It looks fun, but I just screwed up, and I was like, I don't like this.
Yeah, I feel that.
I actually like being a beginner and learning things.
Yeah.
I went wing foiling recently in La Ventana.
Wing foiling.
So you
that?
take a hydrofoil board and you take this wing and you hold in your hand.
Wait, like-
and it's almost like
Like a
You're
kite?
double propelled.
it's like a windsurfing with a foil board,
That
but
sounds
there's no
so
wind.
hard. You just
But
take
you-
two hard things. and
Guys
find
can,
them.
can get insane amount of waves. doing it.
Wow.
Yeah,
So,
bet.
so you're basically kite surfing with the foil board.
Kite surfing with the foil board. And I'm
That
pretty good
sounds
at kite
insane.
surfing, but
Yeah.
the wing foiling is a whole new animal. And I was just swearing so much at La Ventana, like trying to get up on my board, all this wind chop and short period swell and this, 25 knot wind blowing. And I'd get up and I have to be in my goofy stance, to go one direction. And I'm trying to manage this whole thing and get the thing going. And I mean, it's so humbling to be a beginner, but I kind of like that. I like being a beginner, but I also like learning. I guess I like learning. I don't like being a beginner, but you got to be a beginner
For
to
sure.
learn.
Yeah.
So
Is there any?
so what I was going to say about the e-foil is that the hydrofoil without the heavy board and the propeller down
Yeah.
low, which kind of gives you a weird attitude when
Yes.
you're flying on it, the hydrofoil without all that stuff feels different.
Oh, it
and
does.
it's a lot. It's like the difference between, I don't know. It's a completely different feel for me.
Yeah.
Like I don't like the e-foil.
The e-foil is interesting because you have to use the trigger and you're holding it in your hand.
Mhm.
So in order to use that, you have to get enough speed on your stomach to get up to your knees and up to your feet. But in order to get to your feet, you have to like push down on the board and your trigger finger presses so you go a little bit faster, and then it goes like it kind of kicks up on you, and then you freak out a little bit, so you let off all the gas, and then it dips down, and then you're just like doing this thing where and yeah, it's just it wasn't fun for me. I was like, I just can't figure this out.
You have the board skills, I know you do, to just give it 2 days.
Yeah. Yeah,
You probably only tried it one day.
yeah. I tried it one day, and then, like I said, it flipped over and hit me in the shin, and it hurt like a bitch. And I was like, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I was with a guy who doesn't surf, and he was just like ripping it around, and but he's obviously had more time on it. It was his board, so I was like, okay, I know that if I was able to just like get up and trust myself, I would be able to do it. But the pain of the shin kind of deterred me.
Is that the same trip where you did the jetpack thing?
Yeah.
That's so
Have you ever seen
epic.
those jetpack things? It's not really a jetpack, but it's a propulsion from like a jet ski, and it goes through a tube, and then you can stand, and it puts you like 30 feet in the air.
Like Iron Man style?
Yeah, like Iron Man style.
I've
Yeah.
never understood the purpose of that.
It's for
It's
fun.
so
Just so
freaking
you
fun.
float above. The
I've never
Yeah.
tried one.
Oh, it's so fun because you can go up 30 feet in the air and then drop down and go underwater and go like 30 feet below water and
Holy
then come
shit.
up.
Okay,
and like,
okay.
you just feel like,
I never heard of that.
Do you try
part
and
of
do
it.
flips or?
yeah, you can do, I don't know about flips.
Yeah, like who's the best
There's,
at
like-
that in the world? You know, like what are they doing?
you can
What's
do,
the trick?
you can do like twirls and shit. You know?
It looks great. It looks totally crazy.
Yeah, it's
know.
crazy. It's fun.
It
but
does.
It's not easy. Like everyone that I was with, for some reason, I was good at it, but everyone else was like, I can't.
So you
get
just
up."
float in the water and you have the little things in your hands or something.
I don't remember where. Is it on your feet? I think it's on your feet.
Oh, so it's on your feet and you're just in the water and
But
then it just turns on.
There's some sort of like
You're like locked in with a boot,
something like that.
and then you can. So basically, the propulsions are on your feet, and you twist your foot one way, and you'll turn that way.
And your feet they're not connected on like a board or anything, right?
Yeah, they are.
I was gonna say if you went like this, what would happen?
You just have to do the splits.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
drain water both
yeah.
ways.
Like a
Drop
starfish.
30
just-
feet to your nad.
Damn, I'm gonna go on YouTube hard later and just look at these clips.
I got some videos.
Do you?
I'll send them to you.
Yeah, let's throw them up. Let's throw 'em up. Oh,
Oh dang!
It's question time.
oh shit. Okay,
Okay.
you want to explain it, or we don't need to?
It's basically just questions from our viewers on social media. So I think we got 6 questions?
Yeah, 5 or 6.
5 or 6 questions up in
Curated.
here. Curated questions.
Curated.
Meticulous.
All for you. We posted something on our story saying that you were coming in, so they knew you were coming. Okay. First question. J.S. Sherritt, favorite multi-pitch in California?
Great question.
That's hard to say. It seems like all my favorite routes are the more recent ones I've done.
Okay.
You know, so with climbing, you kind of do something, and if it's really hard, then you're happy for 5 minutes, and then you're thinking about the next thing that you want to do
Yeah.
that's really hard. So my favorite would be in Baja California. I'll qualify, and there's a multi-pitch down there. I've put a lot of photos on Instagram lately of a climb called Orion Rising, and it's in Baja California. It's 1,000 feet long, multi-pitch, 512C. And it's got everything a traditional climb would have: stemming, chimney, off-width, finger cracks, roof cracks.
So
It's the whole package. So
512C that's the difficulty. Is that
Uh-huh.
right?
yeah,
And what level is that? It's like, say out of 1 to 100, where is that 100 being the hardest?
that's a better comparison. Out of 1 through 100, 512C would be 75.
Okay. And
So
LCAP would
or
be
70, let's say.
what's LCAP?
LCAP is rated differently.
It's
There's
not a-
so many
it's not a
climbs on
multi-pitch.
LCAP. but,
Okay. Sorry. I don't know.
no,
There's
it's
a lot of lingo.
Yeah.
There's 513D climbs, 514 climbs on LCAP that would be on the 1 to 100 scale. They'd be more like 85s.
Okay. So this is pretty close.
No, they maybe only like 68
Okay.
on this one.
Gotcha. Okay.
Is this a first ascent that you did?
Yeah,
in Baja?
it's the first ascent. Uh-huh.
What part of Baja is it?
It's 20 miles south of La Rumorosa.
Okay.
So you cross Tecate,
Uh-huh.
you go east to La Rumorosa, get on a dirt road, goes 20 miles south. And there's
kind
this big cliff over the Laguna Salida, that dry lake down below. So you're at 6,000 foot elevation looking down throughout the desert canyons, way out into the desert. It's stunning out there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We have a friend out there that owns a ranch that's like pretty close to where you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I think she has like 2,000 acres or something.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
Marty?
big ranches out
Yeah,
there.
Marty, and shout out Marty.
Yeah.
And we go in the backcountry, like horseback riding with her, and it looks like the Grand Canyon. Like it's just like beautiful out there. I had no idea until I went to her.
Especially in
ranch.
the spring, it's shocking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's not surprising that there's good climbing out there.
Well, this next question, I sneak peeked it, is similar, so it's a good transition. This one's from J_Aki. How would you, a K?
Okay.
A
Or
K?
JK?
JK, maybe?
JK.
That sounds right. Okay. This question is, what's the dream project route?
Well, the dream project route is hypothetical, so I'll hypothetically
Yeah.
say that it's something that you don't think you can do,
Yes.
that takes you sort of like on a journey where you start thinking, this is way beyond me,
Yes.
and eventually you can do it.
Yes. I love
So-
where your head's at.
And that's where I like first ascents, because you'll come across a section of rock that is so difficult, but it's there, right? It's that's how hard that is, and you're going to have to get good enough to climb that. So it pushes you, at least it pushes me to get better. So that's my dream route. So that dream can be for anyone at any level of difficulty. Like you could do something that it would be easy for me as a warm up, but for you it would be a complete whole experience. To be like the best thing you ever did.
Yeah.
And that's what's neat about climbing is those climbs are always there. You can go back to them. They're not going anywhere.
That's wild.
Yeah, that is really cool.
That's very broad, and I like that.
All right.
Yeah. So I feel like you've climbed a bunch, so you probably checked them all off. I was thinking like a plane tailing or towing, like a classic rock climbing wall. You're at like 30,000 feet or something crazy, and you're flying. You rappel down, you got to climb up that while you're flying.
How about a rock climbing wall suspended by a hot air balloon?
Yeah,
And
there
then
you
when
go.
when
That's
you're
a
done,
whole.
you just let go. if you
Yeah, it sounds
fall.
epic.
You have a parachute on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's like nothing really to worry about. Kind
Okay.
of.
Now we're talking
Yeah.
about like LSD induced.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's where my head went right away. You're in the clouds.
Or just the crazy Red Bull project.
Exactly.
All right. This name is so hard to pronounce, but at Gumby G Turbo 4L Modex.
Fuck yeah, Gumby.
Wait, hold on. Let me start that over. At Gumby G Turbo 4L Mode Exhaust.
Oh, that's a car guy for sure.
Classic.
Yeah.
Gumby.
Nice. What's up, dude? He asked, what's the best climbing experience you've had? Part 1. And part 2, something you wish you had started doing earlier in life.
Oh.
The part 2 is easy. I wish I started surfing earlier.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I started surfing really when I was 35. I had surfed a couple times in college before that, but I didn't even know there was a high tide and a low tide, and that would affect the waves. So if I started earlier than 35, I would be a much better surfer. And what was the first part of the question?
Your favorite or best climbing experience ever?
That's hard to say because, like I said, I'm sort of like in the moment, and
Yeah.
I would look back on my more recent ones. But I think and I would say maybe my first 514. 514 is on the 1 to 100 scale is, let's say, well, at that time it was close to 95, but these days 514 might be more like 85. But anyway, at the time, it was among the harder climbs in the world. And when I first got into that grade, my first new climb, first ascent of a 514 climb was maybe one of my more satisfying ones because I had to push myself, and it took a lot of time. Took more than a few years just to get there.
Sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then that kept me happy for a couple of weeks, and I was on cloud 9 for a couple of weeks after that one.
Then the hunger kicks in.
Yeah, then the hunger kicks in.
Yeah.
But usually the hunger kicks in about 5 seconds after I clip the chains on the top
Crazy.
of the route.
Damn, I'd be good for like a year. I'd be like, whoa.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It
Sit
never
back,
ends.
enjoy it.
All right, one more.
Brains.
Last one, actually. This is a climber. I can see it, his profile photo. Smulco, or SM Ulico. Randy, can you tell some stories about establishing the VRG, one of my all-time favorites?
The VRG was where that climb I just mentioned was,
Okay.
that 514.
Yeah.
So you guys have been up the 15 freeway you go through Vegas, and then north of Vegas, it goes through Mesquite.
Yeah.
And it goes through a little corner of Arizona before it gets to Utah.
Yes.
Right before
Yeah.
St. George.
Right before St. George.
Yeah,
and
that
you
little
probably
pass.
just blank it out in your mind that there's nothing there. But you go through this gorge, right when you get into Arizona.
So beautiful there.
And that's the Virgin River Gorge. And there's this beautiful limestone wall. The VRG. There's a beautiful limestone wall right next to the freeway, basically.
I think we went out to, sorry to cut you off there, but we went out to Colorado for Elliott's bachelor party. And I think that's where Alec was showing us all the different his buddy is a geologist. Yeah. And he was showing us the different scales of rock or whatever in the side of the earth. So I don't know why. I just want to shout out Alec there.
Yeah, no, it's worth it.
Well, there's fossils like welded into the rocks there. Just these old fossils.
It's crazy.
Area called Fossil Cave I developed there, where you walk up this giant ramp and you're just looking at crazy fossils everywhere.
Damn.
So it's really, limestone is a really interesting rock. And the nature of that rock was something, it's almost like, you know how they started, when Chopu came on the scene, people were like, oh, that is what waves are now, these crazy slab throwing barrel waves. And so limestone back to climbers was sort of the equivalent of what a barreling Chopu type wave would be. So that's the stuff we were looking for.
Damn.
And unfortunately it was 6 hours from my house. And so in San Diego, so I would have to drive 6 hours one way and 6 hours back every weekend to be a local there.
Insane.
And
how long?
This guy's obviously familiar with that area, and the routes are difficult. They're exciting because we weren't putting over bolting it. We were, making some proper runouts on some of the climbs, and it was just a real adventurous, sort of hardcore climbing area. And to boot, you're right next to the freeway in this canyon, so you can't even have a conversation with your partner this far away because you can't hear them. It's just trucks and noise constantly. So it's all about the climbing. It's all business there.
Wow.
As far as,
and so you pioneered that?
I was one of the guys. Yeah.
Wow. That's really cool. How'd you even find out about that?
Boone Speed, who's a climber from Salt Lake, was really the guy who first discovered it, as far as I know. And he went there and told me about this place and talked about it in magical terms. And so a year after he mentioned that, I went out there and checked it out.
It's a hell of a name,
legendary
too.
name.
Boone Speed.
Yeah.
Boone Speed.
Yeah.
Sick. Is that his real name?
It's his real name.
That's
honestly
sick.
his real name.
Boone
Yeah.
Speed. Wow.
Damn. So it makes me think, when you brought up the Alec point, I never thought about rock climbers being, I guess, like a geologist of sorts. You kind of have to know a lot about different rocks, if it's brittle or not, right? You have to know what you're climbing on. Never really thought about that. Maybe that's just me, but
well, especially if you're pioneering it.
Exactly.
Right?
You got to know what you're working with.
Yeah.
And you have to know what kind it is and where you might find it.
Yeah, so you're looking at maps and like studying rock formations. Like, that's
back
so
in
crazy. So you're looking at maps back then, right? That.
We're talking like 70s, 80s, 90s, where this is before Google Earth.
So this is like
the gold rush.
Not like an atlas or whatever. I don't know what that's called. I'm even blanking. And you're just looking through that and you're like, oh, looks like there's limestone over there.
Geology books.
Wow.
Crazy.
So now, like modern climbing, I'm assuming there's websites where you can say like, I'm looking for blah, or go on Google Earth or something.
Also, how often now are there even new routes to be found?
There are, but they're fewer and farther between. But you have to start increasing how far you're hiking.
Yeah.
So the VRG is a perfect example. You're 5 minutes from the car at the very most that you're hiking.
That's what I was going to ask next.
And now we're in San Diego. We were hiking like 2.5 hours each way,
just to find something.
Yeah, just find something new.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask next about the VRG one. Is obviously you're doing it next to the freeway. Did it ever cross your mind like, hey, this spot's awesome, but maybe like 5 to 10 minutes more away from the freeway, there's maybe something better, or is that not even a possibility?
Oh yeah, we hiked all those canyons.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
okay.
We spent a lot of time.
And the best one was by the freeway?
Best one was right by the freeway.
Interesting.
Because it was at a certain level, certain altitude or elevation, where the stream had cut everything away and solidified it.
Got it.
Has there ever been anything that you've looked at and you said, that's too dangerous, I'm not doing that? Or you just say, fuck yeah, I'm in?
No, I found a lot of places like that.
But not even climbing, like sports in general, where you see something, you're like, I could never do that. Or do you always just take it on?
Mountain biking.
Mountain biking?
Yeah, I could
Really?
never do that.
What?
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Like you tried it and just can't go back. Or...
I suck.
That's so surprising.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, but what if you just mountain biked off of El Cap, and then just that's kind of counts, you know?
I bet you somebody's
Okay,
done
that.
For sure. Someone pogo sticked it.
that. Did they?
Well, that's what he said. Pogo,
Pogo
sticked
stick to base jump?
Yeah.
Whoa, that's crazy.
I didn't do it, but some
Yeah.
other guy.
Oh yeah, everyone's trying to be the first. You know, you think of something
That's
else.
what I'm saying. Saxophone.
Yeah, saxophone off of it.
Yeah.
I wonder if you can. Well, and the wind coming up, maybe it hits the
Yeah.
tube
dude,
just
whole
right.
new sound that
Whole
might
new
save
sound.
the world.
Exactly.
You
Yeah,
could, yeah. No one ever jumped off El Cap playing a saxophone.
there's something there.
That's you.
I'm down for the saxophone part, but I don't know if I could handle the actual like jumping off a cliff. Like,
Well, that's also a really interesting thing to think about is all the hobbies or sports that you do take a lot of time to do them. Like you're saying, like the
6 hour
6
drive,
hour
yeah.
driving, or just even the fact that you had how many base jumps before you even try to do it off of El Cap, and or were they airplane jumps?
There were 80 some airplane jumps
Yeah.
before El Cap.
Well,
And
also,
that's not cheap to do. I mean, especially as like a 19-year-old kid, if you've done it that many times before you went up there, like you know, all that stuff takes time and money.
who's funding this? Is what you're saying.
Oh yeah, a lot. There's a lot of trust funders who are really good at sports
Uh-huh.
because they have all kinds of time.
Yeah,
And someone else without the money wouldn't have the freedom and the time.
exactly.
I made my situation work. I wasn't a trust funder. I was a guy who had a wallpapering and house painting business.
Got it.
And so I could do a job that would say last 2 weeks, and I would get paid more than a guy that works, you know, at a regular job in 2 months.
Uh-huh.
And then I could take off for a week, go climb.
That sounds like one of our surfers, Skip.
Yeah.
He's a contractor, and he just like works for a month straight, and then just takes off for like 3 months. Just goes surfs. It's great.
Yeah. So you need freedom, and to get freedom, you need some amount of money.
Yeah. Yeah. Dang.
wow.
I thought about that with your saxophone jump, because like
Practice the saxophone.
you'd have to practice the saxophone, practice bass
Well, it
jumping,
doesn't have to be
practice
good
climbing.
saxophone.
No, but
I could never do that jump because I'd never be good enough at saxophone.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But like you know,
I just suck
you
at
would
that.
probably find a way to
I
become good
know.
at it.
I don't know. There's some things that you know your limits.
Also seems like the worst instrument because it's so long and heavy and sharp. All that
Yeah.
wind just,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Knock you out, man.
Yeah, I'm thinking like trumpet sounds easy.
Oh, that was
Harmonica.
not what I was thinking. Yeah,
harmonica.
harmonica would be a lot
Harmonica, that's a
easier.
good one.
Yeah, but that's come on.
But
It's
the
like
wind's
barely
blowing
an
back,
instrument.
right?
You don't even have to play; just hold it out in the air. You know,
That's true.
the wind
Yeah.
plays it for you.
It's fair. Were you wearing goggles when you base jumped off?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just in case a fly gets in there or something.
I mean, that's a lot of
Yeah,
speed. To
That's
the
a lot
face.
of speed to the eyes.
Yeah,
That's a lot of speed to the eyes.
and maybe a fly.
Yeah, I mean, a fly at terminal velocity, knock your
Hey.
eye out.
Birds take airplanes down.
That's true. I was thinking about that because I flew recently, and I was thinking like, how many birds die a year from planes? Is this
Well,
an epidemic? going
Speaking
on?
of, you have
Yeah.
your pilot's license,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah.
So how many birds have you killed?
Yeah.
I've never had a bird strike,
That's good.
but it's sort of I wouldn't say it's terrifying, but it's concerning.
I mean, if it hits, because you have a prop plane,
Yeah.
and so if it just hits it, like one goose could take down a plane. You think?
What
just
they
smoke it.
in jets they normally get sucked in the jet motor.
It wouldn't. Just, like,
Whereas with a
squirt it
small
out?
piston plane, chances are it would hit your windshield, and it could destroy
Right,
your
dude.
windshield, and it could cause other
You
problems.
think there'd be like an anti-bird defense at this point? You know what I mean?
Like a train.
Almost like a deer
Yeah.
guard, but for planes.
Sounds like it
Just
doesn't happen.
hits
too
them and
often.
launches them.
No, we generally fly high, so the birds aren't up
Like-
there. Right? So it's usually a takeoff and landing problem. So if you're at an airport and there's a lot of birds, they'll have a NOTAM, or on the radio when you check the weather, it'll say bird activity, or so kind of like be careful, but
Yeah.
it's random.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Wow, it's another fear of mine now.
Just
Birds.
adding up, huh?
Oh yeah, I know. I mean, I've definitely been sweating here just hearing these stories. Just tripping. Every time I watch one of those movies, like Free Soul, like you're talking about before, it just trips me out, and I'm not even there.
No, that was a hardcore ascent.
Crazy. They should
Honestly.
make that in VR or something, where
Uh-huh.
you're kind of like fucking there.
I feel like they must have.
Did they? I would fucking watch that. You're just sitting there like,
Well, I think that's probably the future of sports for humans that are lazy, is just to have
Yes.
virtual reality.
that's me.
Oh, yeah.
Then I'll do the saxophone thing. You know what I mean? I'm just playing the comfort of my own room.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want with a headset on. That's for sure.
Oh yeah. What would you do, Chase, with the headset?
Not jump off with the saxophone. That's for sure.
Well, be creative, man. Fucking, what are we doing? You could do anything. You could be Iron Man for a day.
I would be Iron Man.
Would you?
I'd fly. I'd fly.
I feel that. That's fun. It's good to know. Is that the time? Do you show the time?
Mm-hmm.
Fuck yeah, time guy. We used to have a TV in here, or not in here, but other studio. It's sad. Well, I guess thank you very much for answering all these questions. It's been very insightful, honestly. It's very, because none of us, although Case says he climbs all the time.
Frequently.
Frequently.
Semi-frequently.
Yeah, occasionally. Other than that, it's very new.
And
Dylan, it climbs for sure. So it's good for him. I'm sure you guys can chat after, but.
I've climbed with Dylan.
Oh, did you?
We have
Yeah.
climbed.
How was he?
I gave him one of my guest passes at my climbing.
Was he okay, like naturally, or
Super
no?
good, yeah.
God, no. I was terrible.
He
Really?
hit the 512C, I think.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
512C.
You did it in 2 seconds?
Well,
I'm just kidding.
10 seconds.
Could have been a 512B.
Yeah.
Down rating is a big part of climbing. You know, people say, "Oh, it wasn't that hard."
Yeah, that's every
But
sport.
you know, you've got climbing gyms nearby. Heck, it's pretty easy experience to have these days.
I mean, I guess we could do like a team outing.
Yeah, we should go
Should.
give it a
But don't you have to put those little ball harness things on, or just like wedgies you up?
Yeah.
Do you like that?
You could boulder. You don't have to wear it, but if
You
you're gonna
like
top
that?
a
rope,
new fear of yours.
Do you like that? It's not a fear. Just do you like that? You know? I'm kidding, but that would be fun. I feel like I haven't tried mountain climbing since I was probably like 12 years old. Honestly.
I mean, it's different in a gym, but that's what we did. Was just in a gym.
Yeah.
Me and Mattson.
Like in a gym. Like people are just like benching in this corner.
No, it was like a rock climbing gym. Do they have weights?
Yeah, depending on the gym, but it's usually like in a different room.
Yeah.
But
Damn.
But
All right. Well, it's not too late.
we also just bouldered, but whatever.
yeah.
That's
Getting
fun.
The specific.
Yeah.
If we're getting into specifics,
Yeah. Well,
I
thank
think
you
it was
again.
like a mark.
Just
Yeah,
summing up, thank
there's
you.
probably a million stories we could have gone into.
I
and,
know.
Maybe we should just have you back to talk about those stories because.
Yeah, there's a lot of rabbit holes.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
That's what we love here.
It's cool to hear that you're doing all these things and you're continuing to push the limits. I hear you're big wave surfing as well and a bunch of stuff that you might have a really small amygdala or big amygdala. I'm not sure which one it is.
Abdullah Blangata.
Or is that what it is?
I don't know. And
The
the
one
alligator
that
thing?
doesn't have fear.
That sounds like
has
an
fear.
alligator.
No, I think I have a normal one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You just have giant balls then.
just giant balls.
Calculated risk management.
Exactly.
I saw something actually, sorry to keep going, but today Stab magazine posted like professional surfers and how they get over the fear of surfing big waves. And I think it was CJ Hopgood said that there's two types of people. Those that are like, and I might be misquoting him, but those that are like insurance agents that are like mitigating or thinking about every single risk that could happen before they take off on a big wave. And then those that just like go because they're not even thinking about it. And he said that he falls into the second category, which I would say that most people probably fall into the first one, which is why, there's not more people like you that are going out there and just doing crazy stuff. So you're probably falling into CJ's category where you just like hit it and see what happens.
I would describe it differently than him. I would describe it as a willingness to sit where you need to sit to get the wave.
Okay, a little bit more.
So, you got a big wave style wave coming at you, and you say you're paddling in, and you basically have to be like right there because that's where the wave's going to draw off the reef, and it's going to be steep enough to paddle into, and blah blah blah. You can't sit on the shoulder and get the wave.
Yeah.
So the guy who over mitigates the risk actually isn't really even like in the game because he's on the shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be at the base of the mountain willing to paddle as it comes at you and not flinch.
Yeah.
And that's your biggest chance of success. So it's not like when I was big wave surfing, I didn't feel like I'm just going for it. Like
more informed.
It's more kind of like, I know I need to be here if I really want this wave.
Yeah.
And so.
But then once you're like out there doing it, no matter how informed you are, there's just different factors that come in that can scare someone, even being in that situation and knowing everything, they can still screw up or in their mind, they're thinking, okay, if I am in the perfect spot, I could still slip off my board and go onto the reef, and then I'll get 3 waves on the head. I could die, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's what he was maybe mentioning in that, because like there's 2 different type of people. Both of them are willing to go, but there's people that just go and don't think about it, and the other people think about it too much and just freak themselves out, but they're still going. So I don't know. Either way,
He's surfed a lot heavier waves than I have, but I've surfed a few big wave spots that were legitimately big days, but they weren't the kind of do or die type of spot. You're just going to get throttled. You're going to get the crap beat out of you underneath the water.
Yeah,
you might get a 2-wave hole down or something, but you're not going to get impaled on the reef like at Shobu.
Yeah.
So I think at a place like that where the consequences are super, super severe, I mean, that enters a whole different realm.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anyways, thank you again. Fun talking to you.
It's nice to meet you guys.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
And nice to
Likewise.
see the company you have going here and all the cool stuff.
Thank you.
Thanks
you
for
very
having
much.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Boom.
There we go.